dreams to really change the world. I'm a business growth strategist by profession, and I'm an entrepreneur. I think most importantly is for the last 12 years, I've been figuring this life of being an entrepreneur, and I've been in and out of corporate and going and setting up my business, failing, going back, and all of those, all sorts. But I think finally out after third time of going like just the in and out, I'm finally out. Yes, I think I'm finally out, and I've just taken the 12-year journey and the experiences that I've learned over the last 12 years, and really trying to help my fellow entrepreneurs, particularly African entrepreneurs or Black entrepreneurs in particular, where we are now just not talking about entrepreneurship as a response to an opportunity or where you're seeing yourself as a hustler, but we are looking at entrepreneurship and saying, can I build a business that's beyond survivalist? Can I build a business that can be a vehicle for my wealth creation? Can I build a business that can be part of my legacy? You know, and we start thinking about the big picture of why we even go into business, rather than just saying I need to put food on the table, because that's important, but it's not enough to sustain a business, you know. And we start looking at what are some of the things that successful businesses are doing that we can incorporate in our businesses to increase our likelihood of success. So we look at why businesses are failing, but we also look mostly why most businesses are being successful and what we could do to adapt that. And obviously keeping in mind the African or South African context, because there's a different dynamic to business, the business landscape in South Africa and Africa generally compared to the rest of the world. But there are basic principles that apply to everyone who's in business, irrespective of where you are. So for us, it's just the work that we do. And my business that I do this work with is called Collab for Growth, which is really a personal and enterprise development consultancy, where we've married the idea of personal development and enterprise development together, because we do believe that you can't just develop the entrepreneur or the enterprise without developing the person themselves. You know, people may be falling apart, but you're expecting them to build multi-million dollar businesses. It's not possible, you know. So how do you make sure that the person is in the right state of mind, heart, and emotion to be able to build this business that you're expecting from them? But also, how do we apply growth strategies to help you build a business of value? For me, it's the objective is really building an asset of value, and an asset of value is something that gives you return. You know, there are so many people that are starting businesses, but then they are not seeing returns in the business, whether in money or in happiness. You know, so they are miserable in their businesses. For us, is to change that mindset, to change that trajectory of business, you know. And I feel like it's a responsibility for us to start looking at Black businesses in particular, because I have a vested interest in Black businesses, empowering Black people to build businesses the right way, that are growth orientated. And that's really the work that I do. I consider myself a serial entrepreneur because I probably would get bored doing just one thing. So I'm involved in multiple projects, but in the idea of entrepreneurship, because like you said when you started, the idea of wealth creation is quite broad, and there are many vehicles that people can employ in building their wealth. People can go into property, people can go into forex trading, some people can go into business, some people can go into commodities, you know. So there's many ways that you can start building your wealth. You just need to find your path, and my path, I believe, is in business, and that's where I'm interested in learning, but also in growing, you know. So I learn a lot and I teach a lot as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I mean, you know, COVID-19 came, you know, it caused havoc. You know, I normally say to people, if you told me last year, December, that I would need a mask today to go and buy bread, I would have laughed at you. You know, it was not a possibility. We used to laugh at the Chinese coming here, with the faces closed up, and now we are in the space. Now, what has this meant for business in general? What has the COVID-19 crisis really meant for business in general?
I think it's been twofold, right? There's been obviously a shake in how we do business, and our business models have been challenged, So traditional business models, like if you look at the hospitality industry, has been hit hard, right? If you look at the restaurant industry, there was a time where we could not even go out, clubs and just general things that we used to take for granted, and even just normal work. I'm a facilitator, and so one of the ways that we do is we gather people in a room and we facilitate, but we've not been able to do that up until the rules were kind of relaxed, which means that affects cash flow, that affects money coming in. So definitely from a negative side, our business models have been shifted irrespective of what industry you find yourself in, because no one was prepared, no one planned for COVID. So if we look at our strategy, even a 5-year plan or even a 12-month plan, there's nothing planned for COVID, that COVID will happen in 2020 and this is how it's going to shake us and this is how we are going to respond. We kind of had to respond on our feet, but on a good side, there were new business opportunities that came out of COVID. So as an entrepreneur, your biggest role or your biggest obsession is finding solutions to problems, and you got entrepreneurs who are like, okay, this is a problem that I'm quite keen to solve. And sometimes it's a problem within the industry that you find yourself working in, but sometimes it was a new opportunity or a new problem that you had to kind of jump into because the business that you were involved in currently was failing and there wasn't prospects in terms of how you are going to survive this period, So for me, I think it was twofold, and we always look at things in twofolds because problems and crises are opportunities for entrepreneurs to show up, because we thrive best when there's problems. When there are no problems, we can't solve anything, and which makes us redundant, So I think that's the biggest thing, is that other entrepreneurs have found opportunities, and yes, others are struggling. And I'm thinking right now we are slowly trying to get back, but some businesses are really finding it hard to get back. And for me, it's always saying, let's go back to what we have planned and what has gone wrong, and when you don't have that going back plan where you can go back and say, what was actually my plan? What do I need to shift? It becomes also a double-edged problem where you're like, I don't know where to start, But when you're stuck and you have a plan, you can go back to plan and say, what do I need to scrap? Which is a problem that most people are finding themselves. Gavin, I'm noticing that Prince Mongate says he can't hear audio. I'm not sure if everyone is experiencing the same problem now.
Is everybody okay? If maybe you can give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear. Is everybody okay? Yeah, so I think maybe just get him, if maybe it's earphones, if you can get maybe earphones, because sometimes it happens like that, where you find that maybe one must get earphones, because everybody seems to be clear on our side.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now obviously, like last week we had a session around family and the role of family, within the wealth creation space. And of course, family plays an important role. How important is supporting a support structure, when it comes to entrepreneurship? And I mean, you can imagine now when you say, obviously talking about what has happened around COVID-19, how critical is it that one has support of the family when, they take up this role of entrepreneurship?
I would say it's important, but it's not always available, because entrepreneurship in its nature, it's a relatively new concept for us as black people. We're probably first generation entrepreneurs, and when we have had people who are business people or entrepreneurs, it's always been survivalist, So we don't have a good reference of people in our community, at least in my immediate community, where I can say, yo, this person builds a business from scratch and they build a multi-million rand business, you know, so I don't have that big of a reference. And therefore, I know with my mom as an example, it took her a long time to accept that I do not wake up in the morning and go to an office, and I don't get paid a monthly salary, you know, so she's like, okay, I'm okay, I'll support you, but I don't know what I'm supporting, you know, so I think we can definitely, we definitely do need the support, but it's difficult because it comes with a lot of education that we need to give to our families around what it is that we are doing and why we are pursuing this journey that we are pursuing. And it's sometimes difficult, especially when we also have an added responsibility, because some of us are breadwinners in our families. You know, some of us are the people that the family is looking at to provide. So if I quit my job now and become an entrepreneur, what does it mean for the survival of the people around me? You know, so I think it's one of those things that we find ourselves, and it depends on each individual, and those are conversations one has to have with themselves and say, how do I navigate this? And it's not to say don't live your life, but it's also acknowledging each other's context and where we come from, you know. But family definitely important, because some of them are here to give you 100 rand, because sometimes things don't take off as quickly as you want it to be, you know. So it's a risky undertaking, but it's also worthwhile once you find the rhythm, you know. So it's a catch-22. But so for me, whether the family is there or not, if your desire is to pursue this vehicle or this journey, I would say do it, but with an understanding of your own individual context and where and what it means for you.
Okay. Now, obviously, you have, spent a lot of years, you know, seeing what's happening with entrepreneurs and you know, everything else. Now, I may be sitting here, you know, I just lost my job, and right now there are no jobs, and business might seem to be a viable option. Now, where do I start? You know, because I think that's one of the questions that I get a lot in my inbox. People's like, but how do I start? You know, I hear you talking about business and all of that, but what's the first step that one needs to take?
I think I want to firstly say, entrepreneurship, like any other career, is not for everyone, you know. So it might be punted as the solution to all my problems, but unless you have a vested interest to learn and to grow in this field, you will always find it challenging, irrespective of who is around you and who's making it a success, you know. And I think we've created the impression, or there's just a information around what this vehicle is, you know. So we see tenderpreneurs and they are winning a tender there, and we are thinking this is entrepreneurship. It's not, you know, it's not. Entrepreneurship is about solving a problem. So for me, it starts with you, where you are evaluating yourself. What are your interests? What is it that you want to do with your life? You know, what are some of the problems that you are interested in solving? Because there are so many problems in this world. There's problems in education, there's problem in health, there's problems around crime, there's problems around humanity in generally, and there's problems all over, you know, and people are trying to solve those problems. And if you can find the one problem that you are willing to invest your time, energy, and sometimes money in, I would say that's where you start, right? And once you've identified that problem, you then have to validate if the problem exists or it's in your head, because that's another thing. We spend a lot of time crafting a solution to a problem that does not exist. So crafting a solution would be, I'm coming up with a graphic design solution for people, but is there a need for graphic, like for the logos, you know, or is the market saturated? Can I do something different? You know, so for me, I think it's defining the problem or finding the problem that you are wanting to solve. The second one is then saying, does that problem exist? You know, does it exist? And that requires you to do a bit of market research, and it's part of it is desktop research, where you do a bit of research. How big is the problem? Who's facing the problem? But also engaging with potential people that could that are interested in solving this problem, and those people could potentially become your customers. So just doing research and saying, how are you affected by this problem? What's happening? And all of those things, so that you are going to then craft a solution that speaks to the problem, rather than something that you feel it's a good look good for you, so it's just for you, and it has all the features that you want, but no one wants to use it. So you do that. But also, I think the next step, after you've defined the problem, you've validated if there's really a problem there, you then craft your solution. Once you've done that, you have to think, what's the big plan? Which I think a lot of people are missing. That part is, what do I want to see about, like, what's my plan for this business? Am I building a business that I want to sell in future? Am I building a business that I want to franchise? Am I building a business that I want to grow into a multi-business in different operations? Or am I building a business that I want to leave as a legacy? Because your decision or your choice in this will then determine the strategy in which you will employ in building this business, because it requires a different mindset. It requires a different tactic when you're building a business that you want to franchise versus a business that you are wanting to sell. There's key things that you need to think about. If I'm wanting to sell the business, what are investors looking for? What are the key things that I need to be focusing on in building a sellable business? If I'm building a business that I want to franchise, your operating manual becomes the key area, because you are wanting to craft a business where you own your IP, you own, if for instance you're building a food business, your recipes, your menus. So those things you're crafting, and you're making sure that you can take that and you can train a franchisee. So the thinking becomes different in terms of how you build businesses, but it becomes an essential thing that one has to do even upfront before you lay the first brick. And then the other element that you need to think about is, how do I make money? So we never answer this question. So we have a great solution, a great product that we are developing. We're developing prototypes and all of those things, but no one has answered, how do I make money? Who buys this thing? Is it individual people? Is it companies? Is it the government? Because once you've, and we can keep it to these three for now, once you've answered who buys this solution from you, you are then able to say, what is the sales cycle typically? Because some people will start a business and they think, I can go sell to a big corporate as a startup, and that turnaround time is going to just be tomorrow. The reality is, these guys take anything between 6 to 18 months to respond on one deal. So you can send a proposal today about a solution, and you can get to finalization 18 months later, which means your business, if you're just focused on that market, would collapse. It will not exist. But you can also look at individuals, but individuals says you need to sell to more people for you to make a significant impact. So for me, it's those type of things that one has to really think about. And I think the planning on paper is more important than just going out and doing it, because going out and doing it, sometimes you're not able to measure whether or not you're being successful. And I'm not talking about creating a business plan of 120 pages. You can create it in one page, where you're saying, who is my customer? What am I selling? What problem am I solving? What channels am I going to use to get to these customers? What are my revenue streams? And you've got many models, like your business model canvas, that one can use. We've created our own that encompasses some of the things that we talk about, but it's really in one page, and you can use that one page to make decisions and to measure whether or not you are moving, rather than just going in blank.
Okay. Now, maybe go back to that point that you made with not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Now, how different is that statement to now talking about selling, for example? Is everybody, can everybody sell? Is that then aligned to entrepreneurship, or is it a different kind of element altogether?
So for me, selling is an activity within the entrepreneurial landscape, right? And I've always thought of myself as a person that can't sell, because my view of sellers or salespeople has always been the pushy guy, somebody that would say, you need to buy this tomorrow and all of those things. And I think I was freed of that concept a few years ago when I learned that there's different approaches to selling. I prefer a one-on-one engagement. I prefer where I don't need to be selling to you, but we could have a conversation so that I understand what it is that you want, and I then can propose something. But I'm not a push seller, but it's anyone can sell, yes, but there's different strategies that one can use to sell, because selling is a primary tool in the entrepreneurship space, where you need to be able to sell whatever it is that you're promoting or you've created. But there's different approaches depending on the product that you are selling. There's different approaches that will land you a client versus the one side approach where you've got like a call center agent type of mentality and you're chasing targets. Whereas for me, it's not about that. It's about creating value. And so I sell value rather than sell a product.
Wonderful. No, I think you put it so, because there's always this perception that, selling is business, in essence. So, I think that is why then people get confused to say, all right, so if I'm a seller, then I'm an entrepreneur. So that, as you're saying, is not necessarily the case. It's just the component that is within entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. Now, Xoli, when we come to, unemployment, youth unemployment, that I think on its own, it's just one of, time bombs, if I may put it that way, that is just ticking. Sitting at an average of 53%. It's really concerning. How do we, especially as we're talking about Black people, start to, I don't know whether it's to introduce entrepreneurship within our households, make it fashionable. How do we get to that point where we can actually see young people getting into the space and really thriving?
Yeah. So I think the first one, I want to stress that it is not for everyone. So for me, it's how we market careers and stuff becomes important, So we have to position it for people that are interested in this vehicle, because it does require a level of commitment, a level of passion, but also a level of responsibility to say, I want to be a job creator. I want to build a business, and that could make a significant difference in the economy and in my life and the people's lives that I'm called to serve. So for me, it's one saying it's not for everyone, but two, should you now be the one that wants to create this business, we need to have support structures in place, that help young budding entrepreneurs to get into the space. Because I always say, in the space, I've worked in the space for like 12 years, like I said, and what I've found is that there's a different approach that Black people and white people take into entrepreneurship, right? So white people already have the established networks, as an example, where if somebody shows an interest in entrepreneurship, they're not going to go into a classroom and learn about entrepreneurship. They're already within their network. Somebody's going to say, I'll put in 100 Rand. Somebody will say, I'll use my marketing skills to help you build a nice logo and all of those things. And somebody will say, I'll introduce you to a potential client. So there's that relationship that's going. Whereas with us, we have been subjected to trainings, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with trainings. We do need educational stuff, master classes, which are great, are important, but that's not where you're going to learn about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a verb, it's a doing word. You have to do entrepreneurship, you have to find a problem worth solving, you have to start a business, you have to learn on the ground and figure out what the issues are on the ground. You might fail in your first business, and that's something that one has to kind of accept as part of the journey, and a part of the lessons that one has to get. So for me, I think it starts there, but also with the support ecosystem that's available, I think it needs to be positioned correctly for people to access it. and to not just be compliance driven, because I think that's the most disservice that we are doing in the ecosystem, is that a lot of them are compliance driven. So you have to have a registered company and all of those things. Whereas what are you registering when you have not tested if this business is viable? So for me, I think those are some of the conversations that we are having at that level, at ecosystem level, is that people need to be given an opportunity to test and fail, but not just in the classroom. They need to be on the ground, engaging potential customers, engaging their potential market and learning from it. And then just be allowed to come back if the opportunity is not the right one or it's not viable, to start, because the lessons that you are learning on the ground, you can apply to any type of business that one wants to start. But also I think there's a responsibility for us, and that's why I started Collab for Growth, and that's why I create masterclasses, not to teach people about entrepreneurship, but to share lessons, and to create a platform where we can share these kind of conversations, to say, where do I start? What do I need to do to move ahead? And for me, that's the biggest thing, is that we have a responsibility to always go back. The pull, as you go up, pull somebody up, because for me, the lessons of entrepreneurship doesn't stop. I'm not where I want to be in my entrepreneurship journey. So I've not arrived. And I think there isn't a point of arrival, because and until I build a business that I can sell, I'm not there, So I'm also now in class learning about building a business to sell. And somebody might be in class to learn about building a business that can pass the first 5 years, which is different lessons, but it's continuous lessons. But those lessons we are learning on the ground as you do the work that you need to do.
Yeah. Now, there's one thing that concerns me, and I think I've been very vocal about it, where, going back now to townships, you find we sell tomatoes. There's 50 of us selling tomatoes in that row. You find people selling quarters, 50 people selling quarters. For me, there is no variety. There is no innovation. There is just, we're just doing the same thing, all of us. How can we somehow, break away from this sort of uniformity, so to speak, of just having the same things everywhere? I mean, how does that happen?
I think the motivation behind starting a business, especially in the township, is not growth orientated, it's survivalist orientated. I'm trying to put food on the table, and that's a reality one has to kind of accept. Number one is that people are not trying to change the world. People are not trying to innovate. People are not trying to create jobs. People are saying, if she can do it, I can do a much better kora and charge it R5.50, so that type of thing. So the mindset there is survivalist rather than growth and impact and all these other things that we are looking at. But I think there's an opportunity, and I made an example a few weeks ago with the ice cream market that is now booming. So these fancy ice creams that everyone is doing. Exactly, but everyone wants to do the end product. And I think for me, that's the tragedy of the whole thing, is that we are focusing on the end product, but there's an entire value chain that we can look at, in this one business. There is somebody that can just be in the distribution side, where they go buy the stuff and deliver in all these spaces that are selling ice cream. Somebody's missing that opportunity. There's somebody that can manufacture the damn ice cream. So somebody can create the ice cream and say, guys, buy from me instead of buying country fresh. So it's a black-owned business that you can start manufacturing ice cream. Missed opportunity. And also the other ingredients that we put in. There's a delivery guy who, instead of waiting in line in the ice cream stores where we buy, or the space that we buy ice cream and we have to stand for hours, there's a delivery guy that can just come in and take these, like an Uber driver of some sort, to take these ice creams, whatever. So there's an entire value chain that people can start looking at, even in just puzzle shops. Can somebody become the next enterprise and create the baloney tsena? So we are missing opportunities because we are looking at the end product and how much the next person or the person that started this business is making. just by selling ice cream, and you think that's just it, you know, but there's so much that we can take out from just one simple business concept that we can multiply and create more opportunities for ourselves. That's contributing to more jobs, because once you start recognizing that there's so many opportunities in just one business concept, it becomes limitless in what we could do.
But then, I mean, because I'm loving that. I mean, you just unpacked one business, and already I see maybe 5 service providers in that one particular business, and that could be coming from the township themselves. But then how do we re-engineer, or maybe just engineer altogether that kind of thinking that we can then send it through to our township, so that people can start thinking just the way you have put it?
So I think these type of platforms, one, create that opportunity to do so, number one, but it's obviously you can see now it's limited. You know, it's limited people that are on the group, so it's not as wide. For me, it's that education that we're continuous going to take, but it's showing it happen with one business and showcasing that and saying, this is what we've been able to do with one business, and this is what you can be able to do with other businesses. So for me, it's sharing, but also showing proof that these things happen, you know. And then obviously going out. So for me, the engagement with that market becomes important, the township market or whatever market that you're speaking to. So for me, the engagement, and for them to then be able to apply. Sorry about that.
Hey, jealous, you know this thing when progression does these things, but it's not gonna win.
No, not winning.
Yeah, we're happy that you're back. As I say, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know, and then we can be able to answer that. Yeah. So I think then we're just maybe wrapping up around the township economy, which is, you know, something that obviously is contention of debate, whether it's growing or not. But me, I just see lots of malls and little recreational centers, but story for another day. Now, let's go. I also just want to focus again on the township economy, because I feel that, like, especially now when we're looking at the advancement of technology, right? I mean, for the fourth industrial revolution it's here. We are seeing it. It's just showing us flames. How can then, you know, small businesses in particular take advantage of advancements around technology?
I think the first reality is we have to accept that as South Africa, or even Africa, we are far behind in terms of the advancement of technology, you know. So we are lagging behind what's happening in the technological space. But that's not to say there's nothing to learn with where we find ourselves at the moment, you know. So for me, I think technology is shaping how we do business, and the sooner we can adapt to incorporating some element of technology in how we do business becomes important, you know. So there's a number of ways in which, for instance, we are now on Zoom, you know. We are having these sessions on Zoom. It's something that 5, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, we did not even think about. We thought we need to be sitting in a boardroom and having these type of meetings in a boardroom or in a hotel room somewhere, a conference room, you know, which is not the case. And what that does for us is that it opens up new markets, because before tech and before the opportunities, you were only limited to the location in which you operate in. So if you find yourself building a business that's based in Alexandra, you are limited to a clientele in Alex only, you know. Versus now with technology, you can literally open up the market and reach new and a bigger audience, even outside of South Africa. So for me, I think the first element is we need to look at technology, one, as means to broaden our markets. Number two, as means to improve on the quality or in how we do business. So can I deliver the work that I do using technology to increase efficiency? So we need to look at technology as means to create that, but also we need to look at technology as a selling tool. Can I use technology as a selling tool? So you need to be specific and intentional in how you incorporate technology to improve business processes and to improve how one does business. Because a lot of people are saying, I need to incorporate technology in my business, but you have no idea of where and why you need to incorporate technology. So for me, it's you have to look at it from a business process perspective, either to enhance your marketing activities, to enhance your sales activities, to enhance your operations, so whatever it is, then you have a reason behind why you'd want to incorporate technology, and the implementation of it then becomes easier. But I think businesses that have an element of technology incorporated in them have a higher likelihood of success rather than the ones that are just analog, and who are still operating on manual, and they're still doing things themselves and all of those things, which I think it's unfortunate. We are missing out on opportunities. And what's nice about it is because it's become a mass need, the adoption of it has also become less expensive, so you find cost-effective solutions like Zoom, what you can use for free in some instances. You've got many technologies that are now being developed that are really cost effective, that one can just adopt, but it requires a level of education. And if you're not the person, like I know that I rely on my IT person to do the groundwork and figure out what we need to incorporate, because I just don't have the capacity. I would not know what technology to choose and where, but it becomes part of our organizational strategy as we plan. And when I talk about organizational strategy, people may think it's a 10 people team and we sit in boardrooms. Even when you are the only person in your business, you have to realize that there are different units in your business, even if you are the only person that's executing on those, and the decisions have to be made as per the business unit. So what decisions are you making from a sales and marketing element? What decisions do you need to make from an HR perspective? What decisions do you need to make from an operations perspective, so that you also know, Wuti, that when you are bringing people to as part of your team, you know which gaps you are filling, and you're not just employing for the sake of employing. So for me, it's that relationship. But treat yourself like a true business from day one, and not so there's no gerezing in entrepreneurship. It's building businesses that are geared for growth.
Wonderful. Now, we're just getting closer to the end, because I think, one of the things that I also want us to touch on, but obviously I'm looking at the time, maybe you can just a little bit touch on it, but we will dwell on it again. It's the aspect of now, I feel sometimes we get stuck. I've sort of like reached the ceiling so fast, and I don't know what to do. And I think, going back again to a lot of our businesses, that's exactly where we get into that stage. We start the business, it's running, and I don't know where to go from there. What are the things, or what is the thinking when one has to then always then take the business to the next level? What are the things that one should be thinking as they running their business?
So the one advice I give to business owners and entrepreneurs is, don't marry the product, marry the mission, right? So because the product is always dependent on what the market is buying at that time. So a lot of people get married to the specific product. So I'm selling T-shirts, and they are white, they are written in red, they are cool, and for a period of time people are buying it, but it gets to a point where the market is no longer buying this, or there's something new in the market, there's a new trend in the market, but you have not adjusted to the new trend, and to what's happening in the market. You've just stayed stagnant to what you believe is selling. So I always say, look at the mission. What's your primary mission as a business? What is it that you're trying to do? What is it that you're trying to achieve? What impact are you trying to achieve with your vehicle as a business? And what are the ways that you can continue to achieve the same impact, even if the product changes, because the product will change. And you can look at history. It will tell you that businesses that were not able to adjust or change have failed. Even the big successful, look at BlackBerry, look at Kodak, look at so many businesses that we can look back that were existing and were booming at some point, are nowhere to be found now, because they were married to the product. No, our BlackBerries will sell irrespective, there's a market for it. But people were looking for different features, and they never thought Apple will come in and look at those features. So for me, innovation then becomes important. And that's why when you have reached a level of maturity in your business, you always have to be looking at innovating. How do I innovate? Can I innovate by adding a new product or enhancing the existing product by adjusting and responding to what the market is buying at the present time? So it's always around thinking along those lines, but you can never arrive, like I say, you are never at arrival point. You are constantly going to be tested. And that's why I always say entrepreneurship is not for everyone. There's no arrival point. There's always room for growth, room for learning, and we are always climbing a ladder to somewhere, and each step of the ladder has its own lessons, and we need to be open to learning. And if you're not passionate about entrepreneurship or business, it's just going to be tiring. You will just want to go back to your 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it does need a bit of commitment, but it also needs a bit of agility, because a lot of things, especially now, are changing. You always look at your mission, but also look at what's happening in your market. So always be studying your market, and figuring out what's happening. How do I adjust in this market, and how do I continue to grow in this particular market?
Wonderful. Yeah. So now I think just before we close, so I'm just going to give you the 3 scenarios that I like to throw at people, and then you will be able to give us your perspective there. So there's 3 scenarios. So there's somebody in the early 20s, there's somebody in the late 30s, and then there's somebody in the early 60s, right? So we'll start with the one in the early 20s. Now, what should they be thinking around entrepreneurship? They want to start. What are the things that they should be doing at that particular age? Same as somebody in the late 30s. I now have a family, I have kids. What should I be doing? And somebody in their 60s as well. How would you then advise them as they want to then start their entrepreneurial journey?
For me, the nice one is the early 20s, because you have no liabilities, you have no responsibilities, so you can kind of make that decision. You can kind of say, I want to start, and where you always want to start is around the things that you're interested in solving. Like I said earlier, entrepreneurship is about solving problems. So the sooner you can find out, even at an early stage, what are some of the problems that I'm interested in solving? And they might evolve as you grow, but at that particular time in your life, what problems are you interested in solving? And can entrepreneurship become that vehicle for you? I would start at that age. I would just go in, and it's not about qualification and all of those things. I always say those things are relative, especially when it comes to business, yes, they're important to an extent, but they can also be detrimental to your progress, because you want to apply what your MBA teacher taught you, and those things in the real world of entrepreneurship don't even apply, so you can't implement anything of the things that you've learned. So for me, I think I would say 20 years, great time to start, no responsibilities, no worrying about paying the bills and all of those things. So you can start, find a problem that you are passionate about, and find an ecosystem. We need to build ecosystem of support, and which is something that we are doing within Collab for Growth. So I've partnered with people that are in marketing, in HR, in finance, in IT. So we work together. So I go out with a team, because, and these are Black people, which is quite important, because we've always had an assumption that Black people are starting spaza shops and got businesses, but there are Black people who are starting critical services business and product businesses that are important in building the economy. So for me, my first goal is to find Black people that are doing amazing things that I can partner with. That's number one.
Yeah.
So 20, go ahead.
Yeah.
At 30, obviously, you at 30 something, you probably have a family, you have a house, you have a car, you have like all these things. Before you jump, and maybe you have a job, so you are probably employed somewhere, and you're thinking, should I jump and take the leap?
Yeah.
And I would say, look at your own context very carefully. Yes, people might say you must follow your passion, you must do what's in your heart and all of those things. Reality says you can't, because who's going to pay for the house, who's going to pay for the car, who's going to pay for the kids' school fees and all of those things, which for me, I found myself following my passion at some point and I almost lost it all. And I was not ready.
Yeah.
I was not like I had the bank called me about my house, my car, and all of those things. And I was like, this entrepreneurship story, I'm not ready for, and I had kids at that time. So for me, losing it all was not an option. But for some people, they have support ecosystem where somebody can hold the forte for a year, because at least for the first year and a half, you are testing things out. You are figuring, you don't even have a product to sell. You are engaging with the market and you're selling. It's still aligned to the problem that you're solving, but what exactly it is that you're selling, it's unclear.
Yeah.
You're testing a business model, and it becomes important that there's ways in which you can take out the stress of survival, which is the most important thing, is that when you are stressing about how to survive and how to build the business, you can't separate the two. Survival will always take precedence, and you are sometimes going to find yourself doing things that you are not even supposed to be doing that can hinder your progress. So for me, I think if you can cover the issue of survival, first, how am I going to survive the first year and a half, 3 years of my business as I build this? Because it requires, and sometimes I always advise that use your job as your first investor. So instead of quitting at the first idea of entrepreneurship, look at what you're earning. If at all, you can start redirecting some of the funds, even if it's 200 Rand a month, into the business, to invest in the business. So you use your job as an investor in your business, where you have to be setting up calls and calling people. You buy airtime that's an investment, where you have to go meet people over the weekend for coffee, and the salary that you're earning can buy you the coffee to meet a potential client. That's an investment in your business. So rather than seeing it as a hindrance, see it as an opportunity that you can use to invest in the business that you want to build. And if there's ways that you can build this business part-time, I would say build it part-time to validate that it's a real opportunity before you jump on it.
Yeah.
And if it can cover your living expenses at a minimum, then we're okay. But if you are starting a business that can't even cover your living expenses, and you have no ways of covering your living expenses, or it means your life will overturn, I would make a different decisions. But for other people, they want to go back from living in a 2-room house to living in a shack. They're okay. They think that's part of entrepreneurship, and the suffering is part of your stripes as an entrepreneur. It has nothing to do with you being successful or not, And I feel like a lot of people have suffered in the past and have gone through that journey. We don't have to be going through that journey. We need to be learning what they've learned as a result and applying those lessons. At age 60, I think you need to think, and everyone needs to be thinking about this, but I think at age 60, it's more about legacies, and the 30-something has to think about it, the 20-something has to be thinking, but the 60-year-old has no choice but to think about it. So this is like probably the last business you're going to start, as an example. What are you trying? How do you want to go out? What's your bank goal? So how do you want to go out? So for me, I think it's about the legacy, and it's about protecting your final wealth, and saying, this is what I want to leave for my family. When I'm gone, at least this is a memory that they will keep with them, and it's something that they can take and grow further than I have done. And there's no limitation in when you can start a business or you can become an entrepreneur. It's just the motivation is different at each stage of your journey.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. No, I think we can go on and on. I mean, there's a lot of things to be discussed. As I said, we will take it as we go. But Sis Xoli, thank you so much for availing yourself tonight and sharing a lot of the perspective that you have provided for us. Yes, the episode is recorded. So I'll be posting it on my YouTube channel probably tomorrow. But yeah, you just follow us there and you'll be able to pick it up. Gav Talks Property and Finances, so you can go there and subscribe. Just giving feedback for somebody who asked if this is recorded. Yes, man. So thank you so much, Sis Xoli. As I said, this is not the last. There's so many things that we need to be able to discuss. Maybe just from your side, just the parting shots, and then just to give us your contact details for those who want to contact you, so that they can be able to get hold of you. How do they get hold of you?
Great. So for me, I think my last advice or my last thoughts is let's be intentional about building growth-orientated businesses. We have to move from the survivalist mentality, but also start thinking about growth, because the legacy that we want as Black people, the type of future that we want as Black people lies in the room today, and it requires us to start setting a trend of what type of Black businesses exist out there, because there's a one-size-fits-all approach. When we engage with the outer market, when they think Black business, they think just carpenters and plumbers and spaza shops, whereas there's a wealth of different shades of Blackness or Black-owned businesses, and we need to be intentional about taking ourselves out there and applying the business principles that growth-orientated businesses are applying. So for me, I think that's that. But also being intentional about not just learning in the classroom, but also taking the lessons outside and testing our ideas outside with our markets, because we can never say we're in business when we have not engaged with the potential market that we are wanting to serve. But also, if the business is not making money, it's not a business, So for me, you are in business when there's a value exchange, your product or your solution for money, then you are in business. Before then, it's still ideation. So you need to keep that in mind. But also, I think the most important thing is marry your mission rather than your products, because those will continuously change based on what the market is looking for. So for me, have a clear mission. Plan, one pager, nothing more. Do a one pager around the key elements of your business, and then go out and test it. The best way to learn is to go out and engage with the people that you are wanting to serve. We are all called to serve. And I think for me, entrepreneurship is a vehicle that I'm using to serve. You need to find yours. It could be property, it could be commodities, it could be whatever. So don't be sold into the idea that everyone has to be an entrepreneur or a property investor or a forex trader. Just find yours and be willing to learn and educate yourself in that stream.
Okay, and then how do they get hold of you?
Me.
Yeah.
You can get hold of me, one, via Facebook. I've got a Facebook group called Grow Your Business with Xoliswa Moraka. You can join that group. So I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, it's Xoliswa Moraka. I'm on Instagram, it's Xoliswa_Moraka. You can check out our website, it's www.collabforgrowth.com. Collab is COLAB 4 growth.com. You can send me an email, info@collabforgrowth.com. You can contact me via WhatsApp, it's 081-365-2794. So there's various ways in which you can reach out to me, and I look forward to engaging with all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for, as I said, for availing yourself. This is definitely not the last time. We're going to talk a lot. We need to unpack this. We need to build, growth businesses, legacy businesses. I mean, I'm excited about that value chain ice cream. You know, every time there's something that I hear, people is like, yo, there goes another sermon. So I'm gonna write a sermon on it. But yeah, so for those, so I have a book available. We have Financial Planning for What? Amazing book that talks about finances, talk about black tax, property, everything. It's in this book. So it's only 160 Rand, and if you need to be posted, it's 200 Rand. You can be able to send me on my number 074 412 7614, 074 412 7614, so that you can be able to get yourself a copy. But you can also follow me. As I said, I do financial sermons. I talk a lot of things around finances, around wealth creation. So you can be able to get me on Gavin Kabela in all my platforms, whether it is LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. That's where I think I'm more active, and then on WhatsApp as well. So I use WhatsApp statuses a lot. I'm sure people read those long things, they're like, yo, this guy. But you will be blessed. So thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. Yeah, next week, as I said, we have a wealth protection dinner. We will be talking about wills. Why is a will important? Especially those who have kids, you are married. Oh, the ones married in COP, property of community of property. You need to be able to listen to watch that. So it will be next week, Thursday, 7 o'clock. But yeah, so be on the lookout for that information coming out probably by tomorrow. So thank you so much. May you have yourself an awesome evening, and see you on the flip side. Gavin Kabela signing out. Bye.